So the next topic is identification and authentication failures. We talked about broken access control on the first day, I believe, yeah. And this is somewhat related. So authentication is about proving who you are, while access control is about making sure that once you've proven who you are, you have access to things that you need and should have access to. So this is, in a way, first step. If we look at the most notable problems that are mentioned in this category, is there are improper validation of certificate with host mismatch, improper authentication, and session fixation. So especially improper authentication is something that is like, it's a never-ending story, because in a way we rely on our users for, we cannot control this aspect of our project in its entirety. One of the most common problems when it comes to authentication is credential stuffing, which is basically buying or downloading a lot of stolen passwords and then just trying them against various websites. And since people tend to use a single password across all the accounts that they have, and a lot of times even pretty simple and not secure passwords, this is a very common attack factor. So what we can do personally is like just always use password manager, and use a different password for every website. And not just that, I would say that we should also try to promote this idea among our users and among our friends, because there's still a lot of people that don't do that. Even in my own immediate family, I have people almost laughing at me and at my randomly generated 50 characters long passwords. But when you have a password manager, that's easy, and you've protected yourself quite well. So yeah, Drupal by default has this password strength indicator. So I'm on Drupal.org website, which runs Drupal, obviously. And we can see that if I enter a really weak password, like can, in this case, the indicator would tell me that my password is weak, and it would suggest things that I can do in order to improve this password. And this is there by default on all Drupal installations. But it would still not enforce any of those rules. It's just a recommendation. Then we have a project that's called Password Policy. And this project builds on top of that, and it lets us enforce these rules, and it also adds other types of constraints that we can enable for our passwords. It is up to you to decide which one to enable, and I would say don't overdo it, because if the rules are too hostile, then usually what the result is that, you know, the result is exactly the opposite. Like, people find ways around it and use weak passwords, especially rules like very frequent rotation of passwords, like every 60 days or 90 days or something like that. That can be very hostile. So I would say use common sense when deciding which rules you want to enable. I personally believe that having passwords that are long enough, it's already like we've covered 80% of the work just with that. So yeah, it depends, but it depends on the policy and the organization. There is another tool in Drupal that helps us with solving these problems, and it's called flood control. Flood control is basically an API that comes with Drupal core. So it's a service that you can use in your custom code if you want. It's basically it lets you register events and define what the rate limit for this event is, and then you can ask flood every time when this event happens if the rate limit has been reached or not, and then you can react on it. So you could do that, like if you implement an API endpoint or something like that, you could use flood to limit requests from a given IP or something like that. But then in Drupal core, we use flood to protect the login forms, and we're basically counting how many failed attempts to log in there are from a given IP, and then if a certain limit is reached, then the login will be disabled for some period of time, and this is quite good protection, but it's something to be aware of if you, I don't know, have a lot of users coming from a single IP at the same time. Then this could be triggered unintentionally and prevent users from logging in. So something to be aware of. If you're using some other framework, most of them would have some kind of API that would do similar thing. Or no, if it doesn't, and if you need something like that, you can always look at the implementation that comes with Drupal and learn from it. And that's something what I really like about open source. It's much easier to learn in open source world than in some other environments where knowledge and code is not shared so freely. Another tool that it's used quite often nowadays, it's two-factor authentication, and Drupal has a nice module for that. It integrates with Google Authenticator, but it's also pluggable, so you can find plugins for other systems as well. Or if you have to use something really weird, you can write your own plugin and still use the main API. Sometimes people don't want to enable TFA for all users because sometimes this would scare users off, and we don't want to do that. So a good compromise that it's sometimes used is to allow logins without TFA for ordinary users, and then to require them for users with elevated levels of permissions. And you can control that through roles and permission systems. So you can tweak the behavior of the module in the way that suits you best. Any questions or comments about this topic?
What's the recommendation for passwordless authentication? Is Drupal supporting it? More generally speaking, do you recommend that? These are like, you know, you only ask the user for their phone number or email address, and then you send them the magic link, and then they log in there. So you never have to worry about their passwords being even long or short. You don't have to actually worry about that at all.
Yeah, that's definitely an option if that works for you. I have to be honest that I'm not sure. I don't know if there is any module that would do that out of the box. I would think that there is.
Yeah,
there
are a few in like D7 and D8. But yeah, we've thought about it. We just haven't implemented anything, and there hasn't been a need for it yet. But there's definitely stuff out there that can do things like that, where, you know, you get a code to your mobile, or, you know, a code to your email, then you can log in without having to, remember your password or anything like that.
There's one called Passwordless that's been around for 10 years. It looks like there's a Drupal 8 version at least. So, you know, I'm sure there's some stuff out there.
Yeah. And we actually have, like, we use SMS on Ethos for a couple different things. And so a lot of users would already have a phone number on a file that could be used.
There's definitely multi-factor authentication modules out there that we use on a lot of projects. TFA, SMS.
Yeah, we don't have TFA across the board yet, but we'd probably start by, I think we need to actually start doing it for administrators to begin with.
Definitely, that's exactly, you know, where a lot of our projects start at a minimum. You know, the Drupal Association, for example, anybody on the security team or access to privileged systems is required to use TFA, but it's not a requirement. It's optional for, may not even be available for most users.
Right.
And so we manage their infrastructure and the applications and whatnot. So we put that in place. But
yeah,
so
yeah, like internally we have TFA everywhere, but for our site users and like their, you know, our customers that are also administrators, like we need to get them on 2FA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things in security, the Hive Systems password table for 2022 came out yesterday, and I just pasted it in the chat to everyone. And this always fascinates me. It lists the time it takes to brute force your password, given like the state of current technology. And it's crazy. Like if your password is less than like, you know, 8 characters or 9 characters, it can be cracked in like 2 seconds. You know, even if you have, you know, numbers, letters, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, etc., you know, a 9-character password without parallel processing can be, you know, cracked in, you know, 30 minutes to 2 days max. So you really need to use long, strong passwords to have any real level of security. It's really crazy how easy it is to crack, you know, short, even complex passwords.
Yes, and that's another, like, obviously if you have password manager, then you can generate random passwords that are really long, and just, you know, then you're covered. I did experience a few websites where they wouldn't let me to use password that is longer than 15 characters, which is insane.
Or they don't use special characters.
Yeah, because my passwords are usually like 50 characters or more, and then a lot of times like sites would just break with that, which, you know, makes me wonder why that's the case. Or like another recommendation, if you're not using password manager but you want to use long passwords that are easy to remember, just write down a sentence that makes sense to you, like whatever. It just, instead of using and remembering characters, just write down words. And if you write down, a whole sentence that, 2 years ago when I met my best friend in downtown was a really great weather or something like that, you immediately have a really long password that is easy to remember. So maybe something to consider. In terms of passwordless login, it's not strictly passwordless login, but if you integrate with third-party auth providers, which for Drupal there are many modules that let you do that, you're not dealing with users' passwords either. And usually these third-party auth providers will have things like DFA and whatnot, so you're kind of protected from that front. But then there's also a single point of failure. So if that provider has a problem, you will probably have a problem as well. So it's always a trade-off.